Ladies and gentlemen, we are now welcoming to the show UFC legend, a man who's performed in 4 weight classes, had title fights in multiple weight classes, a graduate and former varsity soccer player at Boston University. Ladies and gentlemen, Kenny, K-Flow, Florian, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It was Boston College, man, not Boston University, but it's all right.
Man.
It was good. It was good. I forgive you.
That's pretty close.
That was one of his better introductions.
Dang, that was pretty close. That was off the top of the head pretty close.
It's on the same street, so I totally get it.
All right, well, Kenny, this is Aaron Shrew. I'm joined by your buddy Jonathan King and also Adrian Gallegos. Kenny, your last fight was against Jose Aldo. You're tall. You're a southpaw. So I was thinking about it, and I was thinking you're pretty close to a Conor McGregor in terms of, the body size, probably taller. Are you pretty much the perfect style or person to study your fight against Aldo for Conor?
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, no, do you think that you're a similar fighter in terms of style or size or being a southpaw to Conor? Do you think that you would have a lot of similarities, that fight versus the fight you had?
I mean, there's some similarities, but I think Conor McGregor, if I'm being completely honest, is a far better striker than I was back then in 2011, and I learned a lot from that fight. And the other thing is why I ended up picking Conor McGregor is the fact that I felt like I was able to keep the fight against Jose Aldo relatively close, despite having the worst weight cut of my life. And I think with good tactics, with patience, with a good breakdown, and the ability to feel the fight, I think Conor McGregor has a good chance. Now, both these men are so capable, so dangerous, have so many weapons, and their skill level is truly world class. I think really anything can happen, but I think the style of McGregor is different than mine in that he moves in a different rhythm, and he also has a different variety of skills than I had back then. And I think he's just a very tricky fighter, and I'm sure he's going to be using a lot of spinning attacks against Jose Aldo, something that I really didn't do.
Okay. And, you trained at TriStar. You trained with Mark De La Grade. Hopefully I got that right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And, there's multiple gyms, and you cross-trained a lot. Later on tonight, we have on, as our second guest, Dr. Anne Marie DeMars, Ronda Rousey's mother, and we're going to ask her, do you think that Ronda only being at one gym has limited her growth? You're a guy who, you're smart enough to know you had to go to different places, get different things, and have multiple areas of expertise. Actually, you're an incredible example of that. Just the way you progress throughout your career, we'll get to that later on. But do you think that it's important to stay at one place, or do you really need to evolve and adapt and learn from new places and new gyms to be successful?
I think there's tremendous danger in being complacent in anything you do. Anytime you get comfortable with a particular mindset, with a particular type of training, you can set yourself up for failure. When you talk about the elite guys, you have to be doing something different than everybody else, and I think that's the key. In any kind of combat, if you're not getting better, you're getting worse. And that goes, you look at anything from, the military at an elite level. If the technology isn't up to par, or people aren't people are forgetting about kind of old certain skills, there's always going to be a weakness. And if you're not working on everything, then you're really at a big disadvantage. So I think you need, if you are staying at one school, you can get better by bringing in a variety of different sparring partners, but that isn't always challenging either, because you're just in that same gym all the time where you're most comfortable. Going to a different gym all the time for me always gave me butterflies, and always kind of gave me that, not the same feeling as a fight, but definitely it was a different sense as I was training with different guys and new people all the time.
It takes humility, I think, in a sense, because I was thinking about this on the way over here when I was asking you the question. And when I go to a gym, like say Kings MMA or just wherever, or people invite me to jiu-jitsu gyms or different gyms all the time, and it's nerve-wracking because I know they're going to want to kick my ass, they're going to want to beat me up, and I'm going to have to go in there with humility and get beat up, basically.
Yeah, you got to run the gauntlet every time you go into a new gym. And, and it kind of keeps, like Kenny says, it keeps you on your toes,
Yeah.
There's no doubt, because even like let's say I would train with George St. Pierre on a regular basis, and as good as George St. Pierre is, over time I understood of where George was good, and I knew kind of how to avoid certain things against him. So that, in a sense, made me comfortable. Yes, I was sparring with, the best guy in the world at 170 pounds, but after doing it so much, there wasn't any sense of nervousness after a while. George was my friend. It's someone I'm comfortable with. I was able to figure him out just a little bit. So I was way more comfortable sparring George St. Pierre than I would be a guy coming off the street at 155 pounds, for example, that had a style that I was, I had no idea what he was going to do to me. So it's always good to bring in fresh guys, different styles, different people.
Kenny, you were coming out of the Ultimate Fighter. You were kind of earlier in your career, you were kind of a quiet fighter who did most of his talking in the cage. And as your career progressed, I mean, one of my favorite lines ever is the I finish fights. You realized, you got to sell yourself, and you got to sell. It's a game. It's a marketing. Coming into this fight, we have a guy who is a master at selling himself. Conor McGregor. He has this psychology where he's going to get in Aldo's head, and he's kind of like this clown prince of MMA, but he's got the talent to back it up, no doubt. On the other side, you have Aldo, who's just staring at him like he's, pardon my French, like he's a fucking psycho killer.
Right.
Going into this fight, which psychology, where does the needle go on the psychology thermometer? Is it going towards Aldo's psycho killer, or does it play into the favor of the clown prince of MMA, Conor McGregor?
It's really hard to tell because, Jose Aldo is kind of this machine that really doesn't get too emotional. Now, I think if we're looking at the psychology of things, Conor McGregor has been the same throughout his career, really. I mean, the first fight when he came onto the scene, he was a little brash, he was confident, maybe on the cocky side, but we didn't really see this come out until a little bit later, maybe his second, third fight, but he's been pretty consistent throughout his career. Jose Aldo has been the same as well, up until this fight. He has showed emotions that he's never shown before. We saw him get overly excited in a lot of these stare downs that they've had over the last year. And it's hard to get something like that out of your head. As a fighter, when you have a guy that is talking a lot of trash, you're going to be thinking about him a lot. And when you're talking about country versus country, Brazil versus Ireland, the build-up that's been happening for a long time, it's been building up for over a year. Conor McGregor has insulted his country, has insulted his coach, has insulted his team, has insulted him as a champion. And we've seen Aldo kind of get out of his normal mode. So I think if there's a winner in here, I think the pressure is really mounting on Jose Aldo. He even said in one of the embeddeds that if he loses this fight, everything that he's worked up into this point is for nothing. That's a lot. That's a lot of pressure.
Wow, that is. That's crazy. So you said earlier that you're thinking you're leaning towards, you picked McGregor in this fight. Am I correct?
Yes, I'm leaning towards McGregor.
Okay. And how do you, I'm just curious, how do you picture it rolling out? Is it a finish or
I don't see this fight going the distance either way. If it's Aldo or McGregor or whatever, I just don't see it going the distance. McGregor pressures you. He forces you to fight. And that also kind of tends to bring out the best in Aldo. We've seen when you start taking the fight to Aldo, Aldo takes it up a notch. If you go out there and kind of try to play it very strategic against someone like Aldo, he has a tendency of cruising a little bit. He does just enough to kind of outpoint you and win the fight. He's that talented where he kind of can do that. Now, McGregor, everything he does is a style to put a lot of pressure on you and force you to fight. And I think that's going to bring out the nastiness in Jose Aldo, and one of these guys are going to get knocked out.
Okay. All right. Well, K-Flow, I have a question, actually kind of more of a comment before we get to rapid fire some of your predictions. I've got to just throw this out there. I've always wanted to say this to you. To be a K-Flow fan, you've got to be a fan of something else as well, because it's something you're going to deal with every time he fights. What is it like to have Keith Florian as your cornerman?
That's funny, just growing up with Keith, man, it was a trip. He's been one of the most intense people I've ever met in my life, and he's been my training partner since day one. And, one thing is for sure, that you are going to hear him in your corner. That is for sure. My brother is maybe got the loudest pipes in the game.
Well, I always joke as annoying as it sounds and seems, if you're in the cage, wouldn't you want that? Because people always say you can't hear your corner guy. Is it comforting, distracting, or what? Or is it indifferent?
No, definitely. I mean, keep. If I needed to hear something, I knew
Come
I
on,
needed to
Kenny!
do
You
something.
gotta go! You gotta go now, Kenny!
20,000 people yelling, and I hear my brother. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Thanks for answering. I've always just as a longtime fan, that was one of my favorite parts of when watching you fight. I'd always tell my dad or whoever you're watching with, I'm like, trust me, you be ready for the corner guy. It's gonna be amazing. Well, Kenny, let me ask you rapid fire. You can ask rapid fire. Just yes or excuse me. Just who you think will win. You don't have to really elaborate if you don't want to go into depth.
Okay, cool.
Paige Van Zandt versus Thug Rose.
I'm going with Rose Namajunas.
Okay. And then Aldo McGregor. You went with McGregor, it sounds like.
Yes.
All right, Weidman versus Rockhold.
So I think Weidman is going to get it done. I think Weidman is just a beast, and I just think his wrestling is going to be the difference. Weidman.
Okay. And then, man, ever since a 145-pound weigh-in day K-Flow, we have never seen such a sight as Super Sage. Super Sage Northcutt. Oh, my gosh. So Super Sage versus Cody Pfister. Who do you think? Or Feister.
Pfister versus Sage. I think Northcutt. I don't think this is an easy fight. That they're not just handing him fights. Pfister is tough. He's very game.
I agree.
But I think Northcutt will get it done. I think he'll be able to get the finish either the second or the third.
Okay, and then before I get to my co-host, Jonathan King has a question for you. I've got to bust his balls real quick with one more question. I've got to do it. Kenny, what is it like to share the screen with Jonathan King, the man that they say is the best greased man since Rocky, the movie Rocky, Mickey, the cut man? What is it like? How do you not let this guy still each scene you're in? How do you get any screen time?
I hate you so much. Well, I'm actually hoping that, Kenny, I could text you next time that I wear a suit on set so you could wear something that's not the best looking suit that God himself created. Because every time I show up, I think I'm the best looking guy on set, and then you show up, and I'm like, God damn it.
Oh, stop. You were killing it last time I saw you.
My question, though, is we forgot one fight, and to me, this is the most intriguing fight of the weekend because it sets the table for the 145-pound division.
Edgar.
Mendes versus Frankie Edgar. In my opinion, I think Frankie Edgar is the true top of the division, and that's just my point. Well, who do you have in that one?
Yeah, man. I mean, this is a fight that I've been looking forward to for a long time. Two very similar fighters going at it. The difference for me is the fact that Frankie Edgar just puts together everything so well. He puts everything together very well, and he just throws more volume than Chad Mendes. Mendes has maybe more power than Frankie, but I think Frankie, the way that he puts his combinations together, how active he is, he just throws so much at you. Even when he's not doing anything, even when he's not striking, he's moving, he's feinting, he's trying to find an angle, always working. And because of that, I think Frankie gets it done.
Okay, and we know your time is valuable, so there's a couple more things before we wrap up. Jonathan, do you have any more questions?
No, I'm good.
Okay, well, I have one. What was it like? What did it feel like getting a leg kick from Jose Aldo?
It's not cute, man. I'll tell you that. He hit me in the leg about 5 or 6 times, and I've said this on multiple occasions, but I didn't get the feeling back in my leg for about 2 months, maybe 2.5 months. Oh it's the hardest I've ever been hit, period. It's certainly the hardest I've ever been kicked. And it's one of those things, too, because you can't really prepare for his kind of speed. And that's one thing that Conor's going to have to really adjust to and nullify very early on. The speed of Jose Aldo is something you can't prepare for until you're actually in there with him. It's mind-boggling how fast he is.
Well, what about Conor's movement coach? You don't think that will be effective?
Well, not against the leg. I mean, it might. I don't know. I don't know against something like a leg kick. I mean, he's going to have to be very flexible and be able to move in and out. But once you get kicked like that, it doesn't matter what kind of movement coach you have. You're not going to be able to move the same.
Yeah, I think it's going to be about the straight left hand and the leg kicks this whole fight. It's going to be who lands which one first.
Kenny,
and the left hook of Aldo as well.
Yeah.
Kenny, this is Adrian. I was just going to ask really quick. What makes Jose Aldo so effective? Is it just the speed and the power, or is it one favors over the other?
He does all the little things, all the things that you can't quite see. He does so well. So his fundamentals, his ability to just always be in the perfect range at the right time. Is what makes him so good, and his distance control, and then you add in all his athleticism with his speed and his explosiveness, his ability to read takedowns. There's a reason why he's been undefeated for 10 years. He has an excellent mind. He's a very smart fighter. He just knows how to win rounds, and he also knows how to finish fights.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking to not only just the host of UFC programming, not just a commentator for UFC programming. He's also one of the co-hosts of at Anik Florian podcast, or at Anik Florian POD. When can we hear your podcast?
Thanks, man. We are on SoundCloud and iTunes. We do a podcast. Anik and I do it every Monday, and I appreciate everyone checking it out.
We really appreciate your time tonight, Kenny. Honestly, I know we kind of busted chops and had a lot of fun. And dude, you're a class act. Jonathan King always says nonstop you're his favorite fighter. Always talks so highly of you. And I have your UFC doll. I've actually tweeted you. I don't know if you remember, but my baby niece loves your UFC action figure, and it's the only thing that keeps her quiet, and she loves the doll. So I tweeted that to you one time, and you responded, I think, or retweeted it.
You guys rock, man. But I gotta say, don't trust a damn thing that Jonathan King says he's a liar. I wouldn't trust him. So.
Awesome. Kenny, thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, UFC legend, Kenny K-Flow Florian.
All right, man. Thanks, Kenny.
Thank you, guys.